There we go. Greetings, it is I, the Dog of Wisdom, come to bring you another stream. How are we doing this week? Fellas? Guys? My boys? My chatters, my fellow chatters, my Crisplers. Oh my goodness, thanks so much, Snutbill. Sorry, I didn't see it. Thanks so much for gifting 2 memberships to Sage Cage and Kyle Parsons. Thank you so much, man. You're a legend. Absolute legend over here, guys. Can we get a few applauds in chat for Snutbill once again coming in clutch with the gifted members? For the members, make sure that you have your Discord account linked because you will get access to the supporters only channel where I share more of my, as Lemon Dropped has put it, my objectively correct takes. I don't know. Okay. I might give an objectively bad take sometime. We'll see what happens. But if you're interested in that, we were talking this week about, I've been kind of quiet this week about my work. I'm sorry. I've been in a bit of a mood. But we were talking a lot about some old 3D art stuff and computers, which was pretty interesting. Wholly objectively correct. No. I mean, I don't know. When I ascend to the avatar state, maybe I will, but we're not there yet, guys. We're not there yet. Fun looking at trim seat so far. Thanks, Sakaromi. Well, I guess we'll get into it, I suppose. Let me just, I have a few windows open. Let me just close some of these down. Okay. So I've been doing more texturing. It's been kind of slow, honestly. I wanted to get more done, but it's been kind of, I don't know. It's more, it takes more thought than it looks like it does, I suppose. So I think it was at the end of last week. I'll show you just the engine. I think at the end of last week, I had done some custom texture work. I've modified some of these a bit. I haven't really changed much of the geometry in Unreal, but I have like swapped in textures just to test things. I've been mostly working in Photoshop and Trench Broom lately. But if I remember, I'm trying to remember what I left you guys with. Because it was, yeah, I'd found a bunch of the stuff about doing handmade textures at low resolution, and that was really exciting. I found that very obscure, unsecure website with all of these gold texturing techniques. And I've now been trying to put them into practice. So some of these aren't all updated in the actual in-game level, but I was going to show you it in-game for a reason. Why was I going to show you the in-game version? I can't remember now. But it's been a procedure of like basically trying to, you know, like you read about something, right? And you go, oh, this makes so much sense. This will be sick. And then your actual skill level is not quite there. So that's kind of been a bit of a procedure for me this week. So I've been working on mostly tiles and trims. I've updated the floor tile a bit. That's gone through some iterations. This is how it was looking last week. This is it now. And this was another variation I tried, but I wasn't too fond of this one. And I think there was something about color. I was doing more stuff with color that has helped me out quite a bit with picking shades and tones for things. Most of my effort insofar as actual texturing work has been on this trim sheet, because I'm trying to make one sheet of trims that I can use on this entire level. However, I've never made a trim sheet before, so I'm figuring it out. There's some I've made, some of them I'm happy with, some of them I want to redo because it looks awful. And I still have a lot of room left to add stuff. And that's the thing as well. It's like knowing how many trims to make, how big to make them. There's a lot of decisions to make. So I guess to walk you through some of that, there's another texture I had open that has guides on it. Because I did make just a blank example trim sheet last week. And you'll notice that it's divided up into increments. And the attitude with this, I'll see if I can get a tab open to find it somewhere. Or I might have the file on in my downloads folder, because I got this from a Quake texturer, and there is a specific guide I've been following. I'm just trying to dig it up. I can't remember where I've put it. It's somewhere in my downloads folder, and it had this entire texture pack. Oh no, it's not in my downloads folder. It's in my Quake mapping folder, because I'm very organized. Quake dev WADs. And this was from, because look, I'm not really that familiar in general with the Quake mapping scene. I've just been reading about it for research, but I haven't participated myself. But I get the vibe that this guy is like well known in the Quake mapping scene, just from the amount of textures that he puts out. For some reason, the image is not opening. I'm trying to open this file. Oh, here we go. So, no, that's not the one I wanted. I want quick start. There we go. So this is what I've been following. But this guy knows what he's doing, and I don't. So I'm trying to basically teach myself with this person's techniques on how to do textures and trims. So what I have done is, he's got like this whole segment here talking about how to divide up a trim sheet properly. Let me just minimize some of my windows so I can see you guys. So he sort of divides this up into segments, and there's a purposeful reason why. He doesn't just like divide it up randomly. He picks like specific amount of pixel increments. So if I remember correctly, it's like the squashed ones up at the top are like 16 pixels or 8 pixels. I think it's 8 pixels. Then it goes into trim of 16 pixels, then 32, 64, and so on. And then there's a bunch of really condensed ones at the bottom for like smaller, even smaller stuff. Now, I haven't really made much use of sheets like this exactly. This is what I think this is what's called the Macon standardized trim sheet. And there are also customized trim sheets like this, which don't really follow the rules as rigidly and just have cool patterns that are varying sizes that you can like use in between things. So what I've been doing, I made one of this just to test out, just to get a feel for it. And that my version of that was this one. It's supposed to look. It's got the same layout, and the trim lines and everything are in the same place. It's just it's got like trying to get like a metallic feel to it. So that was my attempt at a trim sheet, but it didn't look great. It didn't look amazing, right? So I've since because then they've got the custom trims, which are kind of more, well, non-standardized, used for interesting details, which is kind of what I want to do mostly. So I've basically just been doing my own version of that. And the thing is, I can't come up with as many trims to fill up a full thing. So I figured, well, let's just start with half of the canvas first and see what happens. And there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that I've done here. And I'm kind of like starting to finally get a feel for what I want, because the tricky thing isn't just putting random detail. It has to feel on theme, and it isn't just about color choice, but detail as well. So the most recent ones I've done are these blue ones, these lighter blue ones here, like these. Those I'm happy with, and these grills. But these ones below, I've tried to put in some kind of detail on this, but I kind of gave up. And then I've got this blue one, which looks a bit too vague. It looks like rubber or something. And then I tried making a detailed metal panel with like different values, and then one with flat values that just has indents on it. And I've kind of just gone through and used the bezel tool and pixel drawing to create these bezels. But when I made these and put them in the level, it felt like they didn't belong in that level and that they needed to be used for something else. So these trims I might keep for another type of level, but I don't think they quite fit the aesthetic for the current one. So to show you how these are looking in action, I've got them open in Trench Broom here, and this is how it's starting to assemble together with the trims. I think I'm the most happy with this grill. I'm quite happy with how that's looking, or I don't know if that's the right word. You know what I mean? It's like a gutter or a grill or something. I like this one because it's simple and it's on theme. It's the right color. It's got the right values, and it's nice. But you can see that these ones kind of don't match. Like, they don't match the vibe. I mean, I like how they look. I think they look cool, but they don't match the walls. So that's like a thing of like, why do I feel like it doesn't match the walls, and why? And if I had to guess, it's because of the angular lines. Because I've noticed that for everything else, like the floor and the and this and the tile, for all of that, it feels very 90 degrees. And the ceiling feels very 90 degrees. But the wall, it has these sort of 45-degree lines on them that look... I feel like for that to work, the other textures would also have to have 45-degree divots and lines on them, which I haven't done. So I think for a more techie kind of environment, like for this and this to match, I think in colors they match, and values that, like with this and the floor, I think they match color-wise. But thematically, I think these would work better if the floor tiles had kind of chamfered edges or hexagonal shaped edges or something. I think that would look more on theme. But that's not what I've done for all of these. So, because I don't want it to feel too techy. I want it to feel a bit medical or laboratory-like. And I think the previous textures I had used were too sci-fi tech. And I think this trim feels a bit too sci-fi. So it's, but it, I might use this for something else, I think. I think this belongs somewhere else, but it gave me a good sense of practice because I've got a nice gradient shading on it. I've got the little highlights on the grill, and I've got this, I'm very satisfied with just the way how it looks, kind of like it has depth, but it doesn't. I like that that's there, and I feel proud of it, but I just don't think it belongs in this level. And then, yeah, you can see here I've tried to put this trim here with this bit, and I'm still not quite 100% on it yet, but I've tried a different trim in this version, on this side of the room. And this one, I'm not sure if I don't know, like I put it in there, but I'm not sure if it's like too saturated or not, or if it draws too much attention. But I do like the detail of having this sort of, it's supposed to look as if there is an extrusion inwards in the middle of the trim. And you might say, oh, well, you could model that. Yes, you could model that in, but that's more work. You could just have it flat and make it look like it's been modeled in with textures. And that's what I would rather do personally. So I don't know, it feels like there's too much contrast, so I might want to medium that out a bit, maybe change the middle color to be something else. I'll get into color in a second. But, yeah, I can't imagine, what is this? Says, I can't imagine the amount of hours you got to spend making small tweaks to look cohesive. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, because I have been spending time as well looking at other environments for just inspiration and guidance. Because the tricky thing is, I think this will come faster to me once I've done it before. Like, once I've done it for this level, the procedure will come faster. But because I'm discovering new territory, it's, it's like there is so many... You got to know what the bad choices are. And if you don't know what those are, you're going to stumble into them. And it's tricky because I'm just feeling it out. Because again, my background is not in this sort of thing. I like to draw characters only. I've never had a huge interest in environments at all. That's why I paid a professional to do this the first time. But turns out people, even professionals, don't know how to do this properly. So I'm having to try to basically teach myself to be at a professional level, which as someone that doesn't like level design. So it's been kind of tough, and I would like to be able to do it quicker. But it's, I think, because there's, when you start learning how things fit together, there's an enthusiasm, because you're going, oh, I understand how this works. It's really cool. But then when you get to work, the enthusiasm kind of wears off, because it is, you can picture it in your head, but it's just like, how do I do my skill level? How do I paint it to look like the way I want it to look? And that's kind of where it gets tricky. It isn't the fact that the technique is so hard or that, making these lines was so difficult. It's more like knowing the right arrangement, like knowing how it should look. And then, I don't know, there's a word for it that it escapes me right now. But it's like, I think I've got a handle on picking colors and the technique. It's just the intention itself of like, what do you actually want? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what, like, because until you make it, you don't know if what you think you want looks bad, right? So for these tiles, this trim, for instance, that was sort of that, where it's like, that's what I thought I wanted, but then I look at it and it's like, this isn't it. But if once you get it to be it, then it's like, that's when you're on the path, if you know what I'm saying. And things tend to flow pretty fast. But it's just finding that upstream momentum. Because again, it's like chucking a guy into a river that's never swam before and going, well, yeah, so that's kind of what it's been like. But I've been trying to push through it. It's just been kind of tricky because I don't have like mastery over this. What's the program you're using called? This is Trench Broom for building maps. So there's been some other weird technical things with this as well that I'm having to solve. So when I made the lab the first time around, I tried it in Trench Broom and I just used like the Quake profile to do it. And I remember to get custom textures, I had to go through this entire procedure to pack my own textures as a WAD file and then import that as a path in Trench Broom. And then I'd have my own textures on the sidebar to use. But since then, I've figured out the correct way to do it, where you don't have to use the Quake profile. So I've actually made my own Trench Broom profile for Project Feline. And the thing is, supposedly you can do a lot with a custom profile. I've been reading the documentation and you can do things like import custom models. You can create custom entities. So preferably what I'd like to do is, Datsami says, you would say you're in the trenches. Oh, good one. But what I'd like to do with the custom profile is get things like my checkpoints and collectibles in there as entities in Trench Broom and place them in Trench Broom, and then using the hammer plugin, substitute those for my blueprints when I port it over. Because from what I've read about, that's supposedly what you're able to do, and that's what you're supposed to do. But I haven't gotten all of that working. I don't really know how to make custom entities and any of that stuff. But I've been trying to just work it out. But I have got the textures working. And it was this weird, oh my goodness, there was this weird procedure I had to go through. Because all of these textures are being sourced from my textures folder, and I don't have to go and pack them as WADs anymore, which is a big time saver. But I think for like a few days, I was stuck on trying to like get it to read my textures folder, because I would set the URL to it and it wouldn't read it. And it turns out you have to have all the textures in one folder. You can't have them in subfolders or anything. And it wasn't reading them from subfolders. So I have them all just in one big folder, and then it works. But yeah, there's a lot more extensibility to these custom profiles that I've yet to leverage. But I'd like to get to the point where I can drag in my, collectibles, checkpoints, entities that are actually to do with my game and place them here. Because placing each of those cogs, each of those checkpoints, or enemy spawns, or what have you, in Unreal is, oh my god, it's so much hell. I hate it. So if I could place those in Trench Broom instead, and then substitute them out when you import it, that would be so freaking cool. That would be awesome. But I haven't reached that level yet. But what I have tried doing, because the thing is, because it's like, all right, well, now I've got my own profile. I want to continue making the lab in my feline profile and not in the Quake profile. Now, from what I know, there isn't a way to change the profile of a map in Trench Broom. So what I've tried doing is copy pasting the BSP over from the old file to this file, but there's some issues because it doesn't read, it loses all the textures. So I've tried to just take this opening segment, and you can see that the rest of it is all empty. So it's completely lost all the textures for this other geometry, trying to take it into this scene with all the textures loaded in it. So I've tried to just reapply them manually. And now that I'm working around, I'm starting to understand like the right arrangement of how trims ought to be laid out. So that's been a bit of a procedure as well. I was messing around especially with this opening cylinder, because now that I've had time to mess around and play in this level, there's little adjustments I want to make to the geometry. So for instance, this opening area, I think I want to make this bigger so that you get more room to run around, because this is kind of meant to be the opening area, and I've made it a cylinder so that you can just get a hang of the controls in a safe environment. But now that I've just absorbed more inspiration and absorbed more patterns to recognize and things like that, I guess you could say my taste has started to improve. And it's like, okay, I can see why this looks a bit barren. And while I'm going in and making the textures proper, I want to sort of adjust the meshing to be at the same quality level. So I've tried to just experiment with where I would be using my trims. I'm probably the only texture I'm really happy with is the walls and the floor right now and this grill. But I'm not a big fan of how this has ended up looking on the cylinder. I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess in this position, it doesn't look so bad. I think in this little room, this is just another test room I was doing. It doesn't quite fit here, I don't think. I think I need to change the angles just of everything. And maybe it'll work. So I'm just trying it out on the wall here. One thing I've been noticing is I was looking at Half-Life and I was looking at another game as well. And one thing that was really frustrating about making some of these levels is putting trims on the floors, especially when you have curved walls like this. Because having trims on the floors with a curved floor is a huge pain, because you have to extrude all of these out individually and then align. And you'll notice that the textures start sort of warping and leaning and everything. And it's like, if I wanted to, put that trim there or something, sometimes it doesn't quite line up, or you have this thing where it sort of skips and it isn't quite aligned and stuff like that. And something I've been starting to notice is that not all games will put trims on the floor, and some of them will only do it on like the walls and things. So one thing I've been considering is trying to come up with a set of rules of where trims should and shouldn't be. So I didn't really think about it too much when I made this the first time, and you can see that I've got trims going down the sides of the floor and on the roof and on the walls. But I'm thinking, is that too much? Could I get away with not putting trims on the floor and roof and just having them on the wall, and would that still look good? So that's rules like that are also things I'm just keeping in the back of my head. Because that also affects the amount of textures. Because if I'm only going to be, if it's the case that the level will still look pretty convincing and good, only using trims on the walls, which is a lot easier to implement than just on the walls. Because literally, I could make it right now very quick. Like if you wanted to add an extra layer of trim on the wall, you literally just take all this and just move it up, extrude it upwards, add a different, thing to this. When you've got like corners like this where the floor leads into another part of the floor, that's where it gets kind of complicated. And there's probably, like you can see here that it's like, well, how do you attach these together? Like, what do you do? And you get a lot of things like that. But when you have the trims only along the walls, I find that you run into that less often. So I could like replace this with another texture here or something on the wall quite easily. And yeah, I've noticed it's been a thing of figuring out like which games do it and why, and could I get away with doing that? And just basically trying to establish rules of like, what should I bother and not bother with? So yeah, a lot of what I've got in these walls, these are all untextured because I've copied this from the other scene. But you see that this corridor has like 2 layers of trims, and it's like, well, do I really need 2? Could I just use the 1? And it's things like that. And because this was the first level I'd ever made in Trench Broom, I wasn't really thinking about it. But now I'm going over with a more critical eye, just sort of sussing out like, okay, what is necessary and what is not. And I guess the tricky thing is that with a lot of the stuff I've been reading, there isn't really a set of rules or like standard things. It's kind of just whatever people feel out, I guess. So for in this instance, for this example, Macon's walls are a bit more complicated than mine. They've got trims on the sides, the top and the bottom. And it's like, well, do I really need that? Like, do I need that much? You know? So it's sort of just a question of that. And you can see here, they've got, again, it varies a lot depending on the game, I've noticed. Some games go very overboard with trims and some don't. And it's just finding the right path for me is sort of, because there's no clear right option with these things. So it's a bit tricky. But I've been trying. And I mean, at the moment, even just with the texturing, I think it's starting to look a lot more as it should, as like a medical facility of some kind, especially with the floor tiles and everything. So I'm a lot happier with the general tones, colors, and everything. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's harder than it looks, I guess. I really want to get to the stage where I'm very familiar with this and I can just do it. But that'll take some time. Simply Green says, the more identical tries, the better. Round room with equal wall segments. Yeah, so the tricky thing, I agree, the tricky thing with Trench Boom, though, is that to make circles, these can't actually be even sized. And there's a complicated reason for why that is. But it has to do with the fact that this is being built on a grid system. Now, I love the grid. The grid's amazing. I think it's a great set of limitations to have. But it means that if you're doing anything curved, it will not be a perfect curve. Because every vertice has to be aligned to the grid of the world. So to get an actual curve, there's a lot of techniques I was reading about on how people create corners and arches and things like that. And a lot of the time, if you were to actually measure it mathematically, it wouldn't be a perfect curve, but it's on grid and it looks like a perfect curve. So that's all that matters, really. But as a result, each of these wall segments is like slightly not the same size. But that's kind of the price you pay for it being on grid and aligned. Now, for the grid itself, this was initially a limitation of the Quake engine, if I recall, because of like floating point calculations or whatever. It was just easier on the computer back then to, you know, have all of the vertices not positioned at like, oh, this vertice is at unit 2.662. No, it's just this unit is at 2, this one's at 3, and so on. At least vaguely, I understand that's kind of the reasoning. Computers now, of course, don't need those limitations, but the way I see the grid now is more of an artistic limitation, which is just as important than a technical one, in my opinion. So while I could go off-grid and make this a perfect circle or whatever, it just creates issues in other ways, artistically. And it's easier to work with things that are aligned. So I'm kind of, while I don't have to with the modern age of computers, I'm enforcing these limits on myself so that I don't do anything too complicated. And that sort of... Oh, by the way, I don't know, as I'm looking at this grill trim next to this floor, what do you guys think of that, actually? Maybe these two pairing might work, after all, now that I'm looking at it in context. I don't know, you guys let me know what you think of that. Praise the grid, indeed. Yes. The vertices position was probably stored in a 16-bit integer. Yeah, I mean, that's... Look, I know I'm not really too versed on the technicals of it all. I'm not John Romero, but from what I understand, that sounds right, and that sounds like what it would have been. I'm not really too interested, personally, in the technical limitations or why they were there, because what I am interested is that, yeah, it creates artistic limitations, which to me are a lot more interesting. And there's been a lot of there's been some limitations I've been enforcing on my textures as well, which have helped. So while it's still difficult to just know what to put on the canvas, but something that's helped a lot is, I think I was talking last week, I was struggling a lot with color and picking the right shades of things. And I think now I've figured out a system of how to pick shades and colors, which has been quite fun. So for instance, if you look at some of these, There now, I think someone had left a comment on my last stream telling me about like different color spaces. And there was one in particular, I'm trying to remember the name. Might have been called like lab color space or something. There's like a bunch of different names for it. But now this looks pretty whack. Don't freak out. This looks like freaking science or whatever. But because a tricky thing I was having an issue with is when you start hand painting textures. One of the reasons I avoided doing it for the longest time was that I don't know what color or shades to pick, and I was talking about how some software does get this really good, like in PowerPoint, for instance. And I brought up this example where PowerPoint is amazing because it gives you like limited shades. Can I delete these text boxes? Yep. So if you create like, objects in PowerPoint, and if you go to like the fill, it gives you like a palette to work with here. And I had a lot of frustration last week of knowing what palettes to make. Like what colors should I limit to? Because I have to do that. I'm not going to go in just, eyeballing the colors and free picking whatever from the RGB, from the 16 million color RGB spectrum. I'm not doing that. I want to have a discrete set of shades and hues like this. The thing is that Photoshop doesn't have this by default. It doesn't give you a selection like this by default. It does give you swatches, but the colors it picks for you are bad. They're not good colors. And it's like, how do I get it to pick out colors like this for me? And you kind of have to make your own swatch to do that. And to make your own swatch, it's like, well, how do you make this a swatch like this that has this sort of reasoning to it? And now some people said, oh, just go to like Adobe Color or a free palette generator or something. And that's not quite what I was after. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I Google color palette generator, something like this, the sites like this where you just click a button and it like creates a palette for you and it's like 5 colors. Can I, oh my goodness, can I just get to the website? Thank you. Okay. So it'll generate like 5 colors or something like this. And this is not what I want. The reason this is not what I want is because this is like useful for like web design or something where it's like you have a 2D UI and you need things to be different colors. The reason I don't like this is because I don't understand the reasoning. I'm looking at this and it's like, why is this a light shade? Why is this a medium shade? Why is this a dark shade? Why are these two, like, why is it giving me this arrangement of colors? And it isn't just color that it's picking. It's picking vibrances for you, and it's picking shades for you. And it's like, why is it picking those? That's what I want to know. And you don't really get that level of, like, this is surface level, and that's fine if you just want to do something basic. But I want more than this. I want a not too much though. I don't want 16 million colors. I want like maybe 32 colors, but I don't want just 5. It isn't enough. Because then if you're doing things like, shades or gradient shading or whatever, you can't make a gradient from just 5 colors like this. It doesn't work. And then it's like, well, why is it? Because some of these look like shades of the same color, like the 25 and the 43. These look like the same hue, but different shades. And it's like, why is it giving me 2 of the same hue in different shades? What I want is something a bit more like this grid in Photoshop, where it gives you, like, imagine just 3 of these, like this orange and this green and this blue. Like, imagine just those 3, but it gives you all the shades of each one. That's what I want. And these free color picker palette websites, they don't give you this. But I was looking at PowerPoint, right? And I'm like, there's got to be a system to this. There's got to be a reason why they've chosen these. And someone told me, it might have been in the comments or in a stream chat or something, about the lab color space. And this led me on what I actually wanted. Now, I'm not too familiar with the science of how it works. But supposedly, it's like it reads color the intention of this color space, it's a color space is kind of like CMYK or RGB and stuff, and Photoshop is RGB by default. And when you pick colors with RGB, right, you know, you've got the how much green and blue and red are you putting in to your thing. So if you had the standard color wheel is like this, and this gives you way too many options. I hate this. And I don't know where if we go to like the color wheel, you know, and I was complaining last week about how when you pick different hues in this mode in RGB or HSB or whatever, picking different hues changes the brightness of it all and everything. And I was really frustrated by that, because what I like in PowerPoint, right, is that you can pick different shades of different colors, but the brightness level is like the same. Like if you pick this middle shade, and if you were to turn this into a black and white image, the values would be the same values, but it's picking different colors. And for whatever reason, HSB just is not designed for that for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, when you do something like this, you change the brightness and saturation to 100, and then you change the hue, and the visible perceptive brightness is changing, even though the brightness slider isn't changing. And that was frustrating as hell. I hated that. Because, you know, picking the right brightness of things is important, because I don't want to have something that's too high contrast or that distracts the player. You're really not meant to be noticing these textures at all, really. And that's how you know you've done a good job. When people start noticing that, oh, this person's used a very vibrant shade for this thing, and it stands out, if players are noticing that, you've lost. Like, that's what you don't want. So with this other alternative thing, with this lab color space, it's really cool because it actually does it the way I want it to do it, where it's sort of designed to be, it's designed to kind of follow how humans perceive color actually. And, you know, so it'll, as you pick different hues, like, I don't know if I can do like HS color versus lab color. Because when you have like the gradients of hues in RGB, you can see that it gets brighter and darker, but on the lab color spectrum, it stays the same brightness. Kind of like, I don't know if this is exactly it, but you can kind of see that there isn't like a brighter, like you see here it gets white in the middle, but with the HS one, the lab one, it doesn't. So these aren't really good images. I don't really know what the correct search term is. But there was a picture I was looking at that demonstrated this better. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it justice here. Oh, here we go. This is the one. So you see the difference where with HSL, you've got like a rainbow gradient, and you see it gets brighter around the yellows and the cyans, and then it gets darker in the blues. Whereas with the lab color space, it kind of stays the same. And it's like, yes, that's it. That's what I want. So what I've now done, I've got a system. And because there's probably some kind of color picker or whatever you can get that does this, but I tried looking for some kind of Adobe plugin or something that did this thing, and I couldn't find it. So I've just come up with my own little system for the moment that does the job. And what I do when I pick my shades and stuff here, where's my color gone? There we go. So I'll put that up in the corner. So if I've got, let me solo out one of these. Like let's take this one, for instance, right? So when I'm picking shades for like the background, for instance, what I do, because the cool thing that Adobe does have is that it does have the color space in here somewhere. So it's not showing it in the wheel, but you can actually type in lab colors here. And now each of these stand for something different. I think this is lightness. This is the amount of, well, I guess I can show you. If we take the A to 100, that's like the amount of red. That's the amount of green. So it's like a spectrum between green and red. And then blue is a spectrum between like, it's like a spectrum. What is it, a spectrum? Let's set the brightness at 50. It's like between yellow and blue. So you've got B at negative 100 is like blue. At positive 100 is yellow. And then you can mix these together to create colors. So you can make green, you can make teal, and just the intensity of this is basically how much color it's going to mix. So if you do only 10, it's like slightly yellow. If you do 50, it's more, it's like gold. Well, it's not yellow, it's like gold, right? Which is cool. And then you can increase the lightness like this to make it. And this is how color works in PowerPoint. I don't know if it's exactly, but it feels like picking them in PowerPoint, which is what I like. I like how it feels in PowerPoint. So this is really cool because you basically, what I do to pick these hues is that I will want like the background to be medium bright. So I'll pick like 25 for the lightness value. And then I want it to have that blue. So I do -10. And then you see, I've picked in the exact color of the insert tile there. And then it's like, all right, well, I want this to be a light tile now. So I'll type in 75. And now you can see the color. It's like, I don't know if you see what I see, but it just feels right. You know what I mean? Like it does the way I expect it to. It doesn't make it more saturated or more vibrant or whatever. Like I could make this more saturated and it won't actually change the lightness value. You know what I mean? And then I could make this not saturated at all and the value stays the same. And that's so freaking cool. That's what I want. And it's been a real pleasure working just in these lab numbers and the lab color space. So if I want it to be like mid-gray and I want it to be very saturated, you can just do that. And the cool thing is, you know, if you were to go into like adjustments and then black and white, or if I just do a color overlay real quick, if I change this to like mid-gray, fill it, and then color overlay just to remove all the color. Because this is the thing that's cool, is that it preserves the values. And I like that, man. I like when it preserves my values. So I can change this, I can change the saturation to whatever I want, and the values kind of stay the same pretty much. And oh, it's got a bit of yellow in there. We'll take that out. And it's just easier to handle. It's a lot easier to handle instead of this HSB stuff where it's like, oh, the hue is at 210, but I want to make this more purple, so I'll do 240. And now, even though the brightness and saturation is the same, now it looks completely dark. And it's like, no, I don't want that. And then if you want it more cyan, I'll do 190. And now the values change. And it's like, I don't like it. So this lab space, man, it's been so freaking pleasant. It's been so great. And then it makes it really easy to just pick, because then what I do, because then your question might be, oh, well, how does he know what numbers to put? And here's how this is basically what I do. So what I do is most of the lab, there's only like 3 numbers I'm using. It's like -10 and -20, because one of them is like a more saturated blue and one of them is a less saturated. So I use like -10 for like dark. If I want things to look metal, I use like -10. But if I want you to pay attention more to it, I'll make it like -25, which is more saturation, and it looks bluer. And then the value is whatever fits the texture at that point. And then it's like, well, what lightness values do you pick for things? Like, how do you know to make this background bit or the dark bit? Like, how do you know what is the right one? Because 100, that's a bit too bright. 50 tends to be pretty good, but it's like, what do I pick? And the way I do it is I just divide this into fifths, basically. And it's like, instead of having to like use a slider and pick some arbitrary thing, I just turn it into a grid in my head and think, well, you know, if I want things really dark, I do 10. If I want it medium dark, I do 25. Or like just slightly darker, 25, 50, 75, or 90. And those are the only ones I pick. I just pick those 5 values that I use for everything, and it works. Like, now when I say it works, what I mean is that it helps me make choices, and that's what it needs to do. So for this background, 75 was a good value and a little -10 saturation, and I think that was the exact number I had it on before, and there we go. And it just helps you make choices, right? And it's very pleasant. So if I wanted this to match that other one, I just change this to 50, and it's the same color. And it's impossible to pick the wrong one doing it that way. So that might not be the most intuitive way people would think to do it. I'm sure, I don't mind punching in numbers. I'm sure some people really don't like doing that. You know, some people just want to pick a color on the wheel. I don't like the wheel. I like typing in my numbers. I like being precise. And I love this sort of system. And this is inspired by PowerPoint, because with PowerPoint, the reason I picked those values is because if you look at something like PowerPoint, and if you actually hover your mouse over these accent colors, you'll notice that for like let's say this mid-gray, for instance, if you hover your mouse over it, it says darker 90%, darker 75, darker 50, darker 25, and darker 10. And I just picked those same ones. I'm like, well, it worked for PowerPoint. I'm just going to basically pick these same brightness values because I like this gradient. And then I can just control the hue to whatever I want. And the hue, that is picked by the palette itself. So the only thing I'm using in terms of like picking a color palette out, and again, this is why I don't like these free online ones, is because they pick different, different values. But basically, I would use this to pick hues, like the fact that this is orange and this is green, or like a reddish orange and green. But then the actual values themselves, I would control with my system of like 10, 25, 50, 75, 90. And those would be the 5 shades for everything. Now, for more softer things like gradients and such, because you probably noticed that those don't conform to that rigid set of values. So those values I only really use for the primary details, like without any lighting effects. That's what I use just for the fill of like the general anatomy. So if I turn off all of these layers and just show you kind of for this sort of tile how this would have been done. Because I made like this object and I added like a bezel effect to it. And then to add in those extra details, I just use the things I showed last week with hard light painting, just using blend modes to paint in black and white. And that'll add more values incidentally, but I can still control how intense they are. So I don't necessarily care if things like this aren't sitting at 75 or whatever percent. I don't really care about that. That is only for the main, for the low detail, the bones. But for the meat and the muscles and everything else of the texture, I can use these little... I just do what feels right with the hard light shading. And that works for me. I'm liking that. And again, the only real tricky part is then just knowing what to paint in the first place. That's the only real thing I'm stuck on now, which is a good problem, honestly. That's a good problem to have, where it's like, now I know how to do things, but I don't know what. Like, what fits the aesthetic? What fits the theming? That's the only... It's an artistic challenge rather than a skill challenge now, which is... it's a problem. That's the problem I'd rather have. So yeah, when I do things like this to get, if I wanted to quickly just demonstrate sort of how that looks, I get a gray layer and then I change this to like linear light or hard light depending on the situation. And then I just get an opaque or a semi-transparent like black and then a semi-transparent white, and I can just paint in and shade details like this. I'm just using my mouse for example. But then that takes care of any accents or any little details. I don't worry about those sticking to the palette. Because the cool thing about doing that on a blend mode, instead of coloring these, because that's the thing that was just blowing my head when I was looking at other people's textures. I was like, how are they picking, like when they have like, if I bring up my other trims for a sec, because when I was looking at the MMD textures, you look at areas like this, like where they have this crevice, and it's like, how do they pick that shade of blue for that? How do they pick the shade of blue for that? And it's like, well, that can just be done with an overlay. It doesn't have to be chosen with numbers. You can just, it can be chosen with overlay. And the cool thing about doing things like this is that the amount of dark and light you get from that is going to stay consistent no matter what color you pick, really. So if I wanted to, because of the way I've picked the system for this, I could change this to a different hue. Like let's say I want to make this yellow instead, and the relative brightness of everything is going to stay the same. Like if I wanted to do a palette swap on the whole level, I can just change this one number in it, and the values, the contrast and the values all stay the same. It's just the hue that changes only. And anyway, yeah, I'm sort of talking in circles. I'm sorry. It's really cool. I like it. And it's like that aha moment of, man, I wish I had always known how to use color like this, because I've had these same kinds of issues even just with illustrating characters and stuff. Like when I'm illustrating Gabi in Photoshop and picking, colors for her costume and stuff, it's like, oh, like I know I want this to feel darker, but when I do it in the HSB thing, I don't quite get what I want. And it's like, oh man, I wish I had known this ages ago, man. It's so cool. But yeah, so now I do know it, I've been trying to put it into practice. And yeah. So, sorry, it's just my throat this week has been really... It's not sore. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like something is blocking my trachea and it's kind of making it hard to talk. So I don't know if I'll be able to go for as long today. And if you hear me clearing my throat, I'm sorry. It just feels like there's something stuck. But anyway, are you using grayscale lighting layer? Yeah, precisely. That's what it is. To just show you that again, in case you, I don't know if I did a great job explaining it. But yeah, because you guys can't see the layers. That's why my face cam's in the way. But yeah, those little bits for lighting are a grayscale layer. Excuse me. I'm just gonna find what. Oh, this is for this bit. And then some of these are just done with shapes, like the shape tool as well. But for things like the dodge and burn, because I think someone correctly warned me to like not do dodge and burn on the layer themselves. Like you got to do it non-destructively. So I've taken that to heart. And if we actually look at sort of how these layers work for like the little gradients I can add, because I'm not using the gradient tool. And you'll notice that you can kind of see it here, right? You can see that there's like a soft glow in the middle, and then it sort of around the edges, it gets darker. So that's literally a grayscale layer that I've used dodge and burn on, like this. So I get the dodge tool. Is this the right layer? Hold on a sec. If I go to normal, what layer is this on? Oh, this is it's this layer, sorry. Yep. So yeah, I do that, and then I add dodge and then burn like this. So that kind of, when I'm in this mode, I'm only thinking about brightness, which is nice. I'm not in the color picker picking the exact right shade of whatever. I'm just intuiting it. So that's when you can kind of be playful and just feel out the right brightness value and not ruin the hue. You know what I mean? So I can do something like this, and then you just change it to linear light and you put it on top of everything else, and boom, you've got dodge and burn. And if you don't like it, you can just fill the layer in gray again and start over. And it's non-destructive. It's really cool. So this is quite heavy because I'm using my mouse. I don't have my tablet to smooth this, but I can do stuff like this. This is the way I've been wanting to do it, man. It's so satisfying and fun. And then if it's like, oh, it's a bit too strong, I can just lower the opacity. And that's right. And it's just, oh man, it's cool. So yeah, it's been just grayscale. Like the actual layer itself, if we turn it all off, again, it's just grayscale. That's all it is. It's just being blended on top. So whoever suggested that to me, to use grayscale layers non-destructively, thank you so much. It's been a huge help. And yeah, it's been pretty fun. But yeah, it's just, getting stuck on what to draw, what to pick, what to do, how many trims to make, what trims to make. So I guess inspiration, that's kind of when inspiration becomes handy, because I try to not indulge too much in looking for inspiration a lot of the time. But I think that's something I ought to do a bit more if I want to speed things along. I think there's more sources I need to find. That's what I've been trying to do, at least this morning. I was trying to find more reference just to get ideas. Because I don't spend a lot of times in laboratories, of course. In real life, when I'm looking at environments, I don't really pay attention to trims in real life. So I don't have an intuitive sense of, oh, the trim has to look this way. Like, I don't have that yet. I do have that for other things, though. Like, for the floor, I had a bit of that in the wall. But for things like trims, I haven't really developed a sense of this, it has to be this. Whereas with something I'm more familiar with, like character design or something, I don't even have to think about it. It's like, that is exactly, it's got to be this way. So I'm developing a sense of that with trims, but I'm not ascended yet. I'm not the Messiah level at it yet, but I'm getting there. I'm trying. This was a trim from last week, this one, and this is a trim from this week. So that's the improvement. This first trim, I did it at a very low resolution without any blending or anything, and I hand-picked every shade. So I actually went in and picked like highlights and shadows with like the hue picker, and this is what I was able to do instead. So I guess it's getting better. It's just knowing, it's the intuition that I just need to work on a bit. Simply Green says, I've also been working with a hard 1 centimeter per pixel grid and learning how to love the 3-4-5 triangle. What is the I have not heard of that. What's the 3-4-5 triangle? You've got me curious now. Is this some color theory thing? Oh. Can you explain? Because this looks like trigonometry, which is my worst enemy of all time. I I don't understand. The minute people turn this into a mathematics, my brain completely tunes out. I can't comprehend what this is. What does it mean? All sides are whole numbers. Oh, I think I get you. I think I understand what you're saying. Well, whole number. Okay, yeah. I can kind of see what you... I can't explain what I'm thinking, but I think I get the attitude you're talking about. It's sort of like... I don't know how to explain what I see, but in terms of color or in terms of level geometry, I think I get what you're saying. Like, that's the thing that annoys me about Unreal, is that, or Blender or something, is that if you try to make triangular shapes or whatever, or angles in Blender, it doesn't stop you from making these with decimals. And decimals, if you're like me, you don't like decimals. I like whole numbers, right? That's my favorite number, the whole numbers. And yeah, one thing that was always tricky with Unreal is that when you move and just place things in the world, like you can see here for this door, I've had to punch these numbers in to be whole numbers. But you guys are probably in Unity or Unreal or whatever, when you move objects around, it's always something like this every time. When you just drag in things and stuff, right, you always get crap like this. Or if you want to rotate something, it's like always like this. And it's like, basically everyone I've met doesn't see a problem with this. And it frustrates me so much, because it's like, I can't explain to you how it's wrong, but I know it's wrong, okay? And I'm not crazy. I'm not Charles McGill. I'm not crazy. I know that things should be whole numbers, and I can't explain why they should be, but I just know it. So that's one thing I really love about Trench Broom. While it's been a bit of a process to learn, is that it forces you to be tidy. And I like that. We like that. Unity doesn't snap by default. Yeah, man. I'm not... No, I don't want to start ranting about Unity. We're not going to go there today. I got to... Inner peace. But yeah. But I do... If you're like me and you have this sort of weird, indescribable fixation on things being whole numbers, I would recommend Trench Broom very much. I'm really not that good at it yet. I'm still a beginner at Trench Broom, but it's... I mean, if it's so good that a complete beginner like me can make a level in it, right? One guy can do it without a team of 1,000 AAA artists sculpting everything. And that's what I like. That's why I can see a future with this for me, you know, making the levels I need to for Feline. Like, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel with these tools. Whereas before, I couldn't picture it. I literally, I'd be there in Blender trying to make crates and trying to make stairwells and stuff. And I couldn't picture it. I'm like, I can't picture myself doing this for 10 more environments. I can't picture this happening. There's got to be a better way than this. And it took me a few years, but I found it, you know? So if my stream was the way you found out about it, then that's great. That's awesome. More people need to know about this sort of thing, man. It's freaking cool. Vetrus says, we don't like Unity. Division is better. True. No lie detected. I will second that statement. It does, yeah, it's really good for the... Now, I won't say it's good for every kind of level. Like, there's probably a place for the modern stuff. But if you're like me and you just want to level and you don't want to go through a whole procedure with it, and you don't want to buy ZBrush and stuff, like, this is pretty good. Like, this is what I thought level design was supposed to be. And then I tried studying it the normal way, and then I'm like, this sucks. And then I found this, and I was like, oh, this is actually what I was hoping to find the whole time. And yeah. Now, there was... Because that's kind of all the stuff with texturing, that's kind of all I had to say. It's just kind of been a procedure. Real quick, I'm just going to check for any questions about this before I move on to my next thing. A and B go to 127. Oh, right. Okay, I didn't realize. Thanks for making that known. Actually, that makes a lot more sense. So for the lab color scheme, Saferix just told me for this color scheme, I got it wrong. I thought it was from a scale of 1 to 100, but it's actually to, like, what was it? 128? Because the thing is, it lets you type in whatever number you want here, so I just used 100, just because. But 128 makes a lot more sense, actually. And yeah, there is a bit of a difference between... Oh, actually, is there a difference? I can't notice a difference, honestly. Oh, no, yeah, I can see a difference. Yeah, okay. Oh... Because I'm looking at the actual RGB values it's doing, and it doesn't... I don't think it goes past 100. Or maybe it's just not updating in real time. I don't know. Because when I go 60, 80, 90, and now these numbers stop changing. But if I go 120... Yeah, when I go 120 and 100, the actual values don't seem to change. So I don't know. Maybe it is... Maybe it isn't. There was a video I was watching of a guy that made his own lab color picker, but it isn't in Photoshop. It's like a web page. And I think that one I saw does go to 128, but I didn't want to have a Chrome tab open with a color wheel. I wanted to just pick it in here, so I was just typing in the numbers in lab instead. I think maybe it could be because this document is still using RGB color space. Because the other thing as well is that when you make a new document, you can set it to be lab color space, and it'll just do these colors on its own. But the thing is, because I had already started making these, it completely screwed up my blend mode textures when I changed the color space. So if I go to mode and change this to lab color and go okay, oh, actually maybe this time it worked. I don't know. Last time I did this, it made it very, it's like brightened everything. So yeah, I'm just sticking to RGB color space, and I know that Unreal reads RGB better, I think. I don't know how well Unreal's going to read lab color. So I'm just doing it in RGB color space, but I'm picking the colors as if it was lab colors. That's basically what I'm doing. So I don't know if that's the right way, but it's worked for me, and I can still do... Because the thing about lab color and RGB stuff is that the mid-gray value is different, which is why I think I tried doing this off-stream and changing this. I'll try it one more time to see if it... Because last time it completely broke it. Yeah, you can see it now. It's gotten way brighter. Because mid-gray in lab and in RGB is different. So that's probably why. And I didn't want to retexture and repaint all of my blending, so I just haven't really touched it. There's a video called You're Wrong About Color Harmony. I think that was what I watched. Let me type that in. Oh, that might have been what I watched. Or not. Maybe this wasn't the one I watched. Also, oh my goodness. So, I have a confession to make. For the last couple years, I've been using an ad blocker. I know. I'm not contributing to the YouTube economy. I'm sorry, but it's because I don't have time to watch ads. Okay, I gotta get to work. But now Chrome has removed support for like half of my extensions. So if you see stuff covered in Grammarly ads or free Flash games, forgive me. It's the damn guys at Google. They're wanting to sell me products. Okay, I haven't seen... Is this the video you were talking about? Because this is not the one I saw. I saw something that was similar to this, though. But this is definitely... It looks like I should give it a watch later. I won't watch it on stream, because this is a copyright. I don't want to get a copy strike. I don't want to do that. And I don't really have much to say about it. But if you guys want to check it out, I'll link it here. I'll give this a watch for sure, because this actually seems kind of interesting. But I did watch a video similar to that about... the Munsell color wheel, and I watched another video about lab color too. So I don't know if maybe there's going to be overlapping information or something. I will say that there was the video I watched about the Munsell color, because I think I talked about that last week with the Munsell colors, and I'm not, I guess the lab color system for me is working fine. I couldn't quite fully get into the Munsell color thing, but the video I watched about it was very delightful. It was from this lovely old lady on physical paper as well. This was so cool. The video she had like her little studio, and she had like an actual physical paper printed out with her slides. And it was so sweet. And I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I love finally an art tutorial that's just, It's got nice ancient divine wisdom, and it doesn't have freaking Vine booms and Among Us jokes every 2 seconds. Very cool. I want to shout that video out just because it was so lovely. I gotta find it now. It was just delightful to watch, man. I don't know what, but it was from a traditional painter, that's how you know it's good. I'm just trying to find what it was or what channel it was from, because there was a video I watched where it demonstrates it with Minecraft. Oh, I can't find I don't know where it was, but it was this lovely video, and now it's coming up with a bunch of ads. Oh, here it is. This person. Diane Mize. This was lovely. Just like the presentation, like the knowledge is cool, and I learnt a lot watching it, but the presentation of this video was just so lovely, man. And she's just there in her studio explaining like all this stuff, and it's, I don't know, man, like when people print it out and they show you this, and it's not like edited to the extreme with Adobe After Effects transitions everywhere. I don't know what it is, but it draws me in more, and it makes the knowledge feel more serious, and I retain more of it. And I don't know, I just really love, the knowledge was really cool, but I just love how this video was put together when she's got the actual on the actual board on the side. It feels like I'm in an actual classroom. It's so cool. Yeah, it's like the Bob Ross effect, exactly. So thanks, Diane. Very cool. Very nice tutorial. And then because she has them on magnets and she takes them off when she changes topic. And it's just, I don't know. I remember watching it and I was just thinking, man, I had a great time watching this. I had a great time learning that. So very cool. Thanks so much. In Studio Art Instruction. Very interesting channel name. But yeah, so that kind of goes into Munsell color, which I tried, but I think for me, the lab color system was faster and it did what I wanted. I think that would definitely be something I would look at if I was painting for real, but I don't like painting that much for real. I've tried it, didn't enjoy it, but maybe I would enjoy it if I did Munsell color. She's got the scrolls. Yeah, exactly. She's got the Elder Scrolls, man. It's really cool. Lemon Drop says, for some reason, I want half price on a mattress. Oh, yeah, man. Me too. I don't know what it is, but I just have the sudden craving to buy a mattress. Man, I don't know what to say. Well, speaking of buying products, you guys should check out my link in the description, by the way. I still have stickers of Gabi in stock and some shirts as well. So I better I gotta get hustling. I gotta get on my advertising game. I still got the Wash Your Bowl shirts. So this is going to be my plug. Check these out, guys. Please do it. So yeah, I'm doing it. You know that it's good because I have the courage to show it in my own video and not pay for a YouTube ad for it. So that's how you know. Now in terms of color, that was about everything. But there was like a few other things I wanted to bring up. I've been still working on the video, and I want to release a preview of it sometime this week for the early access patrons. I have been getting very stuck. Again, I keep saying this every week, but it is a hard video, and I've been getting real stuck on the technicals of it all. The other thing that's tricky is that I'm so enthused by this that I've kind of lost enthusiasm for all the character modeling stuff. Just because, that was like almost a year ago now, and I'm kind of bored. So I'm sitting there trying to make this video about Gabi's model, and it's just kind of like, man, I want to work on my textures right now. So I've been trying to sort of maintain it, but there's bits of the video I've been stuck on, but I've been working on other areas of it. I shot the intro for it yesterday, and I usually leave up to the end because the intro has to be really good. And I'm very happy with the intro. Like the first 6 minutes of it is really good. It's just the middle. It's a bit tricky, and I've been just trying to find footage to put in. But sometime this week, I'm going to put out like a work in progress version because I know you supporters have been waiting a while for it. So you can see how it's sometime this week. I'll post it to the Patreon page. You guys can check it out. I'd be very welcome for feedback on it as well when I do it, because the thing that's tricky about explaining such a complicated procedure as Gabi's character model is because I already know how it all works, and I don't know how to explain it to someone else. So it's, so yeah, I can look at this, I can see how it's put together, and it's not as interesting to me now because the magic's worn off, you know? Like, I don't know, to me, I'm used to it now, right? So it's a bit hard for me to I guess be in the right energy to like talk about it. But I'm trying. But I'm very happy with the intro for the video now, and I'm just working on the meat. So that'll come later this week of just a preview, just so I can get feedback on where it starts to get boring. Because I know it gets boring, and that's the thing that's bothering me, is that the video does get boring, and I know that that's not good. I have to make it interesting. Is it hard to... Sorry, answer a chat question. Edon says, is it hard to set up a merch website? Yeah, a little bit. It's actually not the website itself in terms of the design. It's more like the logistics. But yeah, that's like a whole thing. Because I've done it through Shopify. I used to use Teespring, but their quality... That's like the easy way to do it, but you don't really get much control over the page. And the build quality has taken a massive plummet. So I stopped... with Teespring. There's other competing ones now I've heard of, like Fourth Wall, but I'm kind of skeptical of Fourth Wall because they keep nagging me to sign up, and I don't like when people nag me. So, the marketing advice, if you're nagging me and sending me persistent emails to sign up to Fourth Wall, that is a guaranteed way to get me to not do it because you sound desperate, and I'm not interested in desperate people, right? So it was unattractive. It could be good for all I know. I just didn't like the fact that they would not stop email. I don't even know how they got my email in the first place. So that already was pushing it. And then for like 6 months, every week, they were sending... They still do, actually, because there's no cancel thing. Because it's not in some automated service. They keep sending them to me personally saying, Dear Raymond, just checking in case you didn't see it. It's like, no, I saw it, and can you shut up and stop talking to me, please? I don't care. If it was that good, you wouldn't have to beg me for it, okay? So there's my little rant on Fourth Wall. It might be good. I just don't like that they're that aggressive and desperate with their marketing. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. With Shopify, however... They know that they're the best and they don't have to do that. So that's why I went with Shopify, because they feel more confident. Like it feels like they don't have to, they're not in my email with a tin can rattling me saying, please sign up. You know, they're not doing that. So I picked Shopify for it. It's a bit more costly though. It's got more overhead and more setup, but it's more flexible. So that's my thoughts on Shopify. But yeah, so if you guys want to help me subsidize my merch store, buy the merch, linked in the description, check out some stickers and all that. I think I actually have some stickers here. Yeah, if you're not convinced, if you still think that this merch is made up and that it doesn't exist, well, by golly, I've got something for you. So this is the sticker sheet I've got for Gabi right now, and these are all hand-drawn, except one of them. One of them wasn't hand-drawn by me, and I'll let you guys guess. They were done by me, but 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were hand-drawn, and one of them was done by me by some other magical witchcraft. So you guys can, well, you can buy them for yourselves, look at it real close like this, and you can figure out which one of these is not a hand drawing and which one is. So check that out, linked in the description. I'd appreciate it. It keeps me going. It keeps me learning my textures and all that. Oh, whoa. Sorry, I didn't mean to click that. Sorry, the stream's not over yet. I didn't mean to click that. I clicked the wrong button. I hope it didn't mute me. But there was one more. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. I don't know if anyone's chat has asked me about this, but someone in the Discord asked me about this. I'm just gonna check if someone in chat has asked me first before I go into it. But yeah, it's So, because one thing I've been being asked about in my Discord lately, maybe some of you guys have heard. But in another gaming community in a faraway land, there's been a very exciting event that I've been waiting for a long time. And this isn't really related to my game exactly, but I want to bring it up because it's a really shining example of the principles I'm trying to learn. And I feel like it's just the right time to bring it up. I don't like talking about other games all too much because, I mean, most of you probably don't care. But there's this one game in particular that holds a special place in my heart that's had some amazing advancements lately. And that is in the Sonic community. Now, some of you might already know what I'm going to say, but there's been a huge breakthrough this week from the Sonic fans out there that have revived Sonic Unleashed back to life and made a native PC port for it, which is pretty incredible. And I've checked it out. It's really cool. Some of you guys have been asking me about it. And because it's tricky, because this was like one of my favorite games, but when it came out, I bought it at launch, and it was, I still have my copy of it. But everyone hated it when it came out. And that was really tough, because I basically had to pretend to not like it, because I get picked on. If you were the kid that liked Sonic Unleashed, you were the cringe, like, no, you get bullied pretty much. Because, you know, we need the classic Sonic game. Like, that's kind of what the scene was back then, right? So I've had to hold this inside for 17 years now, that I actually thought Sonic Unleashed was good. And it seems like some people are starting to understand to see what I saw in that game. Now, real quick, I'm going to see if I'm pretty sure I had it installed. I'm maybe just getting screenshots might be better, because there's something about the way, because I've now been looking at it in a new light, now that I can actually run it on my computer. And I'm just trying to find my window here. And because there's a lot of really cool texture work going on in Sonic Unleashed that is now easier to notice when it's in... Okay, these screenshots are not very good. These are all low res as hell. Maybe should I just open the executable? I don't want this to turn into a gaming screen. But there's some really cool... Okay, it's going to full screen it. Can I make it not full screen? Thank you. Is that going to... Okay, I'll just put this here for the moment. But, because I was looking at this, and first of all... Can I skip through all this? First of all, it was really special, because I've been waiting for this for a long time. And I'm going to... Can I turn off my sound for this? This is really loud. And yeah, they've got a full settings menu. It's like really high effort. So the guys that made this freaking great job, this is awesome. For those that don't know what this is, so what they ended up doing was this group of modders took the Xbox game files and made a system to recompile them into a native PC port, which is like pretty crazy. So this is running natively on Windows now. And the thing that I really respect is that they did it in a above board way. Because to actually get this to run, you have to have a legal copy of the game, which I have. So I had to get the Xbox out and do a whole procedure. I had to do a ritual like a mummification ritual, if you will, to get the files, get them to my computer, and transmute them into this. And I wanted to bring this up, not just to fawn over it, although I do think it's cool, but I wanted to show, because this is a great example of what happens when an art team focuses on art direction properly. And this is the stuff that inspires me a lot. And I just wanted to share it. I know it's got nothing to do with my game, really, but I just thought it was really cool and worth sharing. Now, what are the controls? Because I'm just using my keyboard here. I wanted to open one of these levels. This one has a lot of cool trim work in it. So I've been looking at stuff like this just to get ideas. And now that I can look at it in HD... You know, you can start like there's so much stuff you can notice and observe that it's like a whole new light to it, which has been an experience. Because I've been playing this game since I was a child, right? So it's been an experience. Now, I don't know if I can move the camera in this game. I don't think it lets you do that. But if you start looking around, because, you know, my lab environment isn't quite like this, right? But architecturally, it's kind of similar in terms of the broad strokes. Like there's corridors and rooms, except their trim work is really cool. But if you've been listening to the stuff I've been talking about for the last few weeks, you can probably start to see, like, these environments start to look different once you start picking up on these. So if you start looking at the sides of the walls and the floor and everything, because when I was a child, I didn't notice. I just would look at it and go, wow, this is such a cool level. And I mean, you'd be sort of running around and going fast and everything anyway. But when you start to look around, you can see the amount of love put into this game. And if you look up on the roof, they have like nice trims and stuff in there, and they've got all these pipes modeled in, and it's like, it looks kind of overwhelmingly complicated, but if you start breaking it down, these pipes aren't actually that detailed. These are like a hexagon, and it's using a repeating texture. And these have like a few rows of trims that are used throughout the whole level. In fact, the trim that is here and here and here is the same. It's the same texture. And this texture is actually from another game that they did. Because, as I've been looking at these, I've been noticing... Because what's interesting to me now is that I don't really... As a gamer, I kind of can't enjoy games anymore because of how long I've been working on my own game. I can't appreciate it on that level anymore. But I can look at stuff like this and see... I can appreciate it in another way, where I can look at this and it's like, man, like they've been really smart with their texture use and everything. And and there's an intentional color choice and everything, like all the stuff I've been trying to talk about. There's probably more to it that I can't see yet, but it's put together very well. And it might seem like not a big deal, but that's the reason why people even bothered recompiling this game. Because when did this come out? This came out in 2008. That was 15 years ago? 16 years ago? I think it was 15 years ago, right? Now that doesn't happen to most games. Most games come out, especially today, like, there was a game that came out, like, in the last couple weeks that instantly Avowed or something? Some Obsidian game? And, like, people have already forgotten about that, right? Even though the budget for Avowed was probably way beyond this. So, I'm not a games financialist expert or anything. I don't know how the business really works, but when I look at this happening, my observation is, like, what's the difference between a game that dies after 1 week and one that endures after 15 years? And Sonic Unleashed is one of those games that I aspire to, personally, that does endure for that long. And, so that's why, I don't know, because I don't know how to put this into words very well yet still, because this is a very emotional thing, and it's not very sensible. There's some rational to it, but I don't know how to explain it. I'm very bad at explaining my feelings about things. But I can just feel something about this whole game, and I'll take you to a more beautiful level, because this is a very drab... It looks good, but there's other levels that are very beautiful in this game. That I want to just show real quick as well. Like like this level is one of my favorites aesthetically. And the thing that I'm trying to explain, because a lot of people have probably forgotten about this game, at least the people that follow the series, you know, because there seems to be this tendency where people will play whatever the newest installment is and just forget about the others. But in my opinion, and there's the general assumption that when you make a new game, it's going to be automatically better than what came before. And that's kind of, I think with a lot of franchises like this, that's their sort of method of surviving, is that they just keep releasing stuff every year, and there's this assumption that each year it'll get better. But I remember when this came out, this is when I kind of stopped following what Sonic was doing, because in my personal opinion, I don't think it's ever peaked past this, and it's been 15 years. I've had a look at some of the other stuff they've done since, and in my opinion, it doesn't hold up to this. To me, this is like the best, most timeless thing they ever made. And when I try to dissect why, there's so many little details about it. So for instance, to bring it back to level design for a moment, because I could go into this in a bunch of areas, but for the art itself, because people at the time thought that it was the highest fidelity Sonic game. It had it was one of the first games to do global illumination, where you've got these nice shadows like this, and it bounce light. It was one of the first games to do that, and a lot of people were wowed by that at the time. And they thought, wow, it looks so realistic, it looks so cool, this must be the best thing ever. But I don't know, like, you could argue that Frontiers looks more realistic than this, but to me, this looks more beautiful. And I think the reason is, I think there was a weird equilibrium in 2008 where it just so happened that this level of beauty was cutting edge back then. But it isn't cutting edge anymore. This is, like, quite dated and old technology now, but it still glimmers. It's still brilliant. And I don't mean that, I mean that literally. It's still very radiant and brilliant, which is why people still remember it. And that's because the beauty in this is beyond the fact that it was cutting edge. It wasn't just because it was a realistic game. Because when you actually look at it, it's not really that realistic, but you don't care really. It's beautiful all the same. And it's not because of the amount of bounce lights they've used or anything. It's because all of this looks the way it was supposed to look. So they had an art director on the team, or a few. I don't know how many people. It was probably quite a few, but you just know that there was someone or a group of people on this team that knew in their mind that it had to look like this. And they weren't getting... yes, they adopted new technologies, they made a new engine for it, but it wasn't with the attitude of, we're going to do this because it's the latest thing. You can tell that there was a motivation beyond that. Because they put in, like, when you start looking at it, even I can't explain how much work this would have been, but it's so... Just because now I can see it in high res, because the original game was not HD, by the way. I don't know how many of you guys know, but when this released on the Xbox and the PS3, it was actually running at SD, upscaled to HD. So it wasn't running at native resolution. And this is the first time I've been able to actually look at this in HD. And that's when you know that, like, that's when the art direction and everything, that's when you know it's all done right, is that you could upscale it and downscale it, and it still looks beautiful all the same. So you can go in the options here. We can look at it how the PS3 people like me would have looked at this game, and it would have looked like this, right? At like at 30 frames a second. That's how it would have looked. And you notice how it kind of still looks good, right? Like, it doesn't degrade. Whereas if you were to take like Avowed or any one of these newer games and you put it through this test where you set the resolution scale to like 20% and you make it the smallest you can, a lot of those games don't hold up when you do that. They look ugly, but this doesn't. And I know I'm not doing the best job explaining what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying my best, but I really wanted to bring this up because this is sort of, to me, like the holy example. Oh, I don't want the audio. Can I turn off the audio? I'm trying to get back. Because this is like the pivotal example. This is like one of the best crafted, beautiful games I've ever laid eyes on. And one of my goals personally is to try to aspire to be that good. Where you've got such a handle on the art direction that in 20 or 15 years... people would still care about it, even if it bombed at launch. People would still care about it to preserve it like this. And that whole procedure, I don't know. I think that's really cool. And I think a lot of the people I talk to don't seem to care about that sort of thing. They're only interested in, oh, I want to release my game now and get it out the door now. And, that's cool. People like having things immediately. But this is the kind of story of what's happened to Sonic Unleashed. Because it's quite tragic if you think about it. It was a huge sweep from their lowest point in the franchise. It came back. There was a really mixed reception at launch. A lot of people didn't like the game and trashed it. And that kind of sent Sega into a bit of a dark age for a while, in my opinion. And but now it's like, the game did have merit though. While people might not have saw it at the time, it had merit. Because here we are. If it didn't have merit, I wouldn't have this open on my screen right now. I wouldn't be able to run this on my computer. No one would have cared. And that's the kind of level that I think is really worth thinking about more, rather than just immediately, is the game out right now? Like, can I play it now? And is there going to be another one out next summer? Like, and that kind of stuff. Like, I personally don't care about that. Like, this game for me was so nourishing that even, it's been, 15 years and I still play it, the same one. And I'm not really, that's all I need, right? I just need this one. So I don't know. I just wanted to make some of my thoughts on that known because the achievement for this was incredible, both from the original developers to make it look so beautiful, to then attract the team of modders to be inspired to preserve it. There's some kind of relationship there. There is a circle of life there that I think is beautiful, and it's really cool to see it come to fruition like this. And it's very rare that happens, that's why I wanted to just, make my thoughts on it known, because this is not common. This does not happen to most games, and it's just so cool to see this happen to this. So I know that was a big rant. Sorry if that was too off topic, but I think this really, I think, is, like, if I could achieve this in my life, I would be happy. I could die and be happy. If I could achieve something that spoke to people like that, I would be so happy. And it takes a lot of work, but this is the kind of thing that keeps me inspired, really. And it isn't just the production direction and everything. Like, that's beautiful, but it's the attitude that led to that happening. Because you don't get this by, oh yeah, mate, she'll be right. Just chuck on the colors, put on a few point lights, it'll be good. Like, no, you don't get that level of timelessness just doing the bare minimum. Like, this was made with love, and now I can actually see the love it was made in full fidelity. So, because like these guys were probably working on this on a CRT monitor back then. So I don't know, part of me hopes that the original devs at least are aware that this has been done and they can see their work in this new light now, because that would make me really happy if that were the case for me. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it's so cool, man. It's just so freaking cool. The antithesis of asset flips, precisely, yes. It's, yeah, and that's the thing, is that, because I just need to make it obvious that it's not because the game was high fidelity. It's not because the game was cutting edge and used new technology. Because guess what? That technology isn't new anymore. But guess what? People still find it interesting. So it's not the technology. It's not the fact that it's using global illumination. It's the fact that it's using it deliberately. It's the fact that it's using it to achieve a specific purpose. And there's a very big difference in attitude from that to what I often see, where it's like, oh, I want to use global illumination. Why? Because it's new and it's cool and it looks pretty. And it's like, yeah, but why really? Like, if that wasn't new, why? And most of the time they don't have a reason, right? That's the kind of thing I don't like seeing. And yeah, I think the team on Unleashed and the team that have brought this mod to grace our computers, I don't know. Most people will look at that and say, oh, cool, they've ported it. Awesome. But what I see there is the circle of life of craftsmanship. And I don't know, it's inspiring. I don't know if, like, this probably sounds very schizo and weird. I'm sorry. I don't know if this makes any sense. But it's just cool. I don't know how to put it. It sounded better in my head, man. It makes sense in my head. I don't know how to explain it, but it's so freaking cool. They released the tools for recompilation as well. Wow, I didn't know that. That's really cool of them. Well, that means that... No way. That means they could do that to our other Xbox games, right? Oh, man, that would be something. That would be something. Lemon Drop says, it reminds me of a saying I heard once, not everything that grows is healthy, but everything that is healthy will grow. Oh, I like that. In a similar way with graphics, something made with love will have attention to detail in its fidelity, but something with all of the detail wasn't necessarily made with craftsmanship and care. Yeah, precisely. Man, that's a great way of putting it. There was another saying that has come to mind as well that I was reading that I think applies very well to Unleashed, because one of the reasons it's very cathartic for me is because, yeah, like I said, when the game came out in 2008, I was there, Gandalf. I was there 15 years ago. Everyone hated the game, right? Everyone kept trashing it, saying it was the worst Sonic game of all time. And I remember feeling really conflicted because I was still a young boy and I was kind of... it was uncomfortable because it was like, well, I really like this game, but I'm like the only person that likes this. That makes me the weird kid that likes this game. So I had to keep my true feelings about it hidden for a long time because, you know, this was during like the Game Grumps culture. This is sort of how it was. I guess it's still like that now, but this was back where if you had the wrong opinion on any game or whatever, you know, that it was over for you. And, what point did I... Yeah, so the point I had was there's this saying from the German philosopher Schopenhauer who says, the purer and more perfect something is, the longer it takes to mature, or something along those lines. That's not the exact quote, but it's something like that, where it's like the more pure something is, the longer in taking it is to reach maturity. And that's what I saw. I could literally see that. When I saw this 4K... Sonic Unleashed, that's what I saw. And it was like, it took 15 years, but I think people can see, they've seen the matured version of it now. And, you know, that's kind of what I saw, is that at the time, people didn't appreciate it. It was kind of it wasn't there, but now that it was of good quality though, which is now why it's reached its maturity and it's appreciated as the game it should have been, I think. So I don't know, for me, it's just really cathartic. because I don't know, it was a game I felt very strongly about. But yeah, it was just cool to see that example be true of like that saying of the longest it takes to reach maturity type thing. Because I know a lot of people that don't agree with that, and they don't even think about the long term at all, and it's just frustrating. So I don't know. For me, it was really cool. Kurtzicle says I prefer the Werehog on Wii. Oh yeah, I did play the Wii version as well a long time later. The Wii version is quite interesting. It's a bit more forgiving, I think. The scoring system is more forgiving, and the progression is a bit easier to understand. It doesn't... there was bits I liked about both games. Ultimately, I prefer the next-gen version, but I thought the PS2 Wii version was pretty well made as well. And actually, you know, because a lot of people didn't like the Werehog in it, right? But playing the Werehog at 60 FPS is actually pretty good. I think part of me thinks that the reason why people didn't like the game originally when it came out is probably because it was running at like 20 frames a second. Like that could have been the reason, because the frame rate was so inconsistent. Maybe that was why. Because the Werehog combat, I know a lot of people didn't like it, but if you've played it on this current version, if you play it at like high frames, it's actually juicy, dude. It's pretty good. And it's just amazing to me that this was made 15 years ago. And there are very few games I've seen since then that have reached that level, that have satiated me that much. So it just, I don't know, it goes to show just how ahead of the time it was, how well made and high quality it was. And I just think it deserves celebration. So congratulations to the team that did that. I hope, you know, to another 15 years of Sonic Unleashed. Wasn't the PS3 version? No, that was the Xbox version. The PS3 version was unlocked, but it was way more inconsistent. That was the version I played on. So I first played it on PS3, and if you looked away, like into the distance, the game would then be 60 FPS. But the minute you turn around, it plummets back down to 20 frames a second. The Xbox is locked at 30, but it's a bit more even. It kind of stays around there more consistently. Did I like Sonic Riders? Yes, very much. And I guess, I don't know, to wrap up, because I got to get going soonish, but I don't know, now that I'm looking at it, there is something about that era. A lot of people don't like that era of Sonic game, but it seemed to me there was an interesting period there during 2005 to 2010-ish when they had like a good level of like a consistent schedule, because it's actually pretty amazing. Like Sonic Unleashed wasn't made over a long period. Like that was made in like under 2 years, which is insane. They didn't even, like, they take way longer. Like, current Sonic team can't even do that now. Like, the Sonic team that's there now, they can't ever achieve something like that. Which, I guess that's part of the reason why I felt so emotional about this recompile. Is because it shows you what was. It shows you, like, a fallen... You know, like, the saying that Martin O'Donnell uses, where it's like, once here stood Camelot? That's kind of what I saw when I saw that they had brought it back, is that it used to be like Camelot, but it doesn't really feel like that anymore to me, because I've kind of lost interest in what their current stuff. I tried Frontiers briefly, but I did not. It didn't have it, man. It didn't have... I could just feel it, that this wasn't made to the same caliber as what they did in 2008. And I think, obviously a huge reason for that is, if I remember correct, a lot of the people that worked on Unleashed left and went to work on Mario Odyssey at some point. They went to go work for Nintendo. And I think that certainly has that, it has that soul to it, right? It's definitely. And I think, it has a lot to do with the people that would have been there. So... it's just, I don't know, it just kind of, because I notice and I digest all of this information and these patterns, and it's just, they were incredibly lucky to have that, whoever was on the team at that point in time, to make that project. It just goes to show that even if you assemble a team of more people in the same company, even if you get more people or whatever, or a higher budget, it won't really matter in the end. And it's I think, because I've been trying to work out this idea of why Sonic Unleashed was that good at all. Like, what were the circumstances that led it to be so? Now, some people think it was high. Oh, it's because it was the highest budget game or something. And that's probably got something to do with it. But I think I have to guess, and I would love to try and, if I probably will never get the opportunity, but if I ever did, it would be so cool to get to meet people that worked on it. Because I would guess a large thing of it is that the individual people on that were really well put together. And they collectively were able to do something like good. And I don't think that really works just because they have more people. It has to be it has to be a lot of high quality people. You know what I mean? And I can just feel it there. And with a lot of the stuff, because I think now because Sonic Team at the time was like, what, 50 to 100 people, I think. And now it's probably double the size or triple. And it's just something I've noticed, because to me it makes sense, but I just see I'll see online a lot where gamers will say, oh, well, you know, their team is 10 times bigger. How can they not do it? And I think I'm starting to see that it's probably the quality of the individual rather than the quantity of the team that has something to do with it. And I don't know. To me, Sonic Unleashed is it represents a lot to me, and that's one of the things it represents, and all the stuff I was talking about as well. But yeah, very beautiful game. The best even. The amazing game. So I don't know. It's just, I'm just in awe. That's it. I should stop rambling now. Sorry if this is getting boring. But I got to get going. Thanks so much for sticking around for another stream. I know this was a bit of a shorter one, and I didn't get as much done as I was hoping to. I apologize. But I've been trying to keep at it, keep my momentum up, and get my textures going. Hopefully by next week, for sure. Hopefully by next time, I'll have something more put together. And before I head off, one last little reminder, because I don't know, lately, you know, game dev can get pretty hard. I've seen some of you guys ask me in chats from time to time how to stay motivated on things. How do you not lose enthusiasm? And I won't lie, I've had a bit of a tough time this week maintaining enthusiasm. And I guess, you know, having encouragement is always good. So I want to just thank everyone that comes to watch these. It's you know, if I was just locked in here by myself, I'd have a much harder time with it. That's for sure. And make sure to, as well, I think it's as well, you know, you guys encouraging me and like people that I know. Some of the people I know in real life actually watch these streams, which is pretty insane. So you know who you are. Thanks for keeping me grounded and in check. I appreciate it. And if you're a developer and you sort of have those same issues as well, make sure to take some time this weekend to reach out to the people that kind of keep you motivated and encouraged. That's good to do. It's very easy, I think, especially as a solo dev, because I love solo dev. It's my favorite flavor. I like doing it. But it's always nice to balance it out a bit with connecting with some people. And that's something I forget to do a lot. So make sure that you make some time to make the people in your life that like you know that they're valued while you can. So thanks for joining me for another stream. I will hopefully see you guys next week with some more cool stuff. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll play some Sonic Unleashed this weekend. I don't know. But thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.